Marcel Offermans with juicy information about the last garage right here, right now. Greetings Romy, you're watching Rum, the channel sharing the joy of sim racing and special videos from the Sim Formula Europe 25. Thanks to all those who come here often, especially those who subscribe, and even more, our patrons. My name is Serta and I will be your host for this video. If you want to enjoy sim racing, subscribe to our channel and join our Discord, and if you want us to keep spreading the joy, become a patron. While we strolled through the Sim Formula Europe this year, Marcel told us a bit about what he's doing with the last garage, including his cooperation with Simucube and how he went simulating the BAC Mono the racers used for the competition at the expo. Here's him, unfiltered, giving us a deep dive. Enjoy!
It's been a year since we last spoke about the last garage specifically. So to talk shop for a very quick second, and probably the thing I'm most excited about here, what's changed? How is the last garage doing at the moment?
So yeah, what's changed in the last year? Actually a lot. I mean, on the physics side, we've been adding new components to the physics system, so we've extended what we have a little bit more. I'm sure we'll take a look at the BAC Mono a bit later and at its specific suspension setup and stuff like that. So we added some components to accurately model that stuff. And on top of that, graphics have been improved. We've really been working hard to make sure that if you look at the car in motion, driving on the track, that all of the suspension elements are moving correctly.
Excellent.
And obviously, big new thing, multiplayer. We have 8 rigs here, so we'll be racing head to head.
Excellent.
And yeah, that's the big new thing here.
So, as part of the how far through multiplayer development are we at the moment?
It's probably the first stage, in the sense that it works on LAN. We still need to do work to get the prediction correct when you're racing against people in Australia with high latency. That definitely needs more work. We're also still working on scalability. So with 8 rigs or 12 rigs, you're fine. If you want to have 40, 50 cars on the track right now, that doesn't really work too well. We need to build in the scaling for that stuff. Yeah, so that, and I talked about it a little bit last year already, making it all more robust. So having setups where you can have redundant server setups, that's also something I'm working on. That's not done yet. We're doing a single server here because we're on land. We don't have disconnects, but yeah.
This is the quick and dirty to have it doing what you can make it do.
Exactly.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. And again, there was never a deadline for the last garage. It's a case of it's done when it's done, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when you're happy with it, it will be released. You're right. And it won't be released until that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we have push rod suspension in the front here. So we were talking about new elements for the last garage. Yeah. We spoke last year about you building a modular design so that you can take elements in and out at will, so that different developers, different manufacturers can use those elements for their own simulations, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
So what is it about the push rods, about the suspension here, that caused you to need to make a new module?
Yeah, so this is the first one with push rod suspension with anti-roll bars, also linked to this rocker over here. So you see the anti-roll bar arm, and it's in a vertical position, and you have the rod that goes to the other side there, and you have a similar setup on the other hand. And that's how you can actually configure the anti-roll bar as well. There's a few different settings you can use. I'm not sure, probably not too easy to see on this side, but there's different setup options for that, and you can have longer and shorter arms for that and stuff like that to make a little bit of difference, make them a little bit stiffer or softer. Yeah, that's a new element that we added, and it's not just in the physics, right? You also see it graphically. So you can look at the simulator and you see all those parts moving like they would be on this car if it was actually running around.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tire Flex is still, because obviously that was one of the unique things about RFX 2 was the tire simulation.
Yeah. Well, we're still on the same tire model as last year. The good news is, I mean, that's a very popular model, Pajeka, in the industry. So working closely with BAC, we got a lot of data on the whole car, also on the tires. So with those models being very similar, you also have a less difficult time actually implementing the model in the sim and making sure that it's close to the real thing. So,
and the outcome of that obviously is that you can you get the feedback from the BAC owners who drive the car and say, yeah, this all checks out.
Exactly. And as you will see, we'll be driving the competition on Saturday at the Anglesey track.
We're starting to see more and more of actual motorsports coming into sim racing. Again, that's got to be somewhere in your radar as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's probably a next step for me, because those are typically teams and manufacturers that are not that eager to share data yet. They're racing competitively, so that makes sense for them. So working with companies like BAC for me is easier because they don't have those restrictions. But definitely these types of cars, I mean, they provide their own series of unique challenges in terms of how to simulate stuff, because they're super stiff and stuff like that. And that kind of pushes different areas of the simulation again. So it will definitely be something that I'll be modeling going forward. I mean, we've got classic Formula One cars a bit already, but they are much softer, have much more suspension travel. So that's still a bit different. Yeah, and we need to have more electronics integrated into the physics simulation as well for a lot of these cars. So that's next steps. Yep.
I was going to say that's a really good point, actually, because not all traction controls and ABSs are built into the car. How much of a challenge is that for you as a designer?
Well, it's quite a unique challenge, because a lot of car manufacturers, they are using off-the-shelf components to do stuff like traction control. Like companies like Bosch and ZF, they make those components, and you basically buy them from them. Sometimes together with a fully integrated concept, and you integrate them into your car, and then you have traction control. So even the manufacturers of the cars often don't know exactly how these black boxes work. They just know that they work. They can tweak some stuff to make it work well on their particular car, but what's happening inside, that's often a secret.
If you like what you see, how about supporting us? A like, a subscribe, or even becoming a patron. Patrons get access to exclusive content and are involved in our decisions. Help us grow with your support.
This is a slightly modified version of the Escort racing at Bridgehampton. And we've modified it to have really lousy brakes that get hot after a few corners. And when they get hot, they get softer. And at some point, you're just pushing them to the floor, and you're not braking anymore.
And it's with the active pedals, so that they
really
change
feel that. You feel it getting soft.
Great.
And
I can't wait to use that on my rig.
So now you can soon, right? I mean, this is the first demo. We put it together for the show, but it showcases one of the many things you can do with new technology. Yeah, they've been great about collaborating and sharing the information for me to get this done in the sim and actually get it up and running here. So
well, it's a win-win situation.
It is, yeah.
And how much work was it to get it to work?
I mean, they're still developing the API, so I'm getting new API firmware versions as I'm adapting and building my software. So you get a lot of the early integration and everything's in development kind of problems where you build something and it might work or it might not work, and it stops working, and we get another update and we try again in a slightly different way.
The typical
I mean,
iterations of software
the
development.
typical, yeah, when everything's moving, you're working with moving targets, so that's going to be a little bit tricky. But the API overall is very nice, very powerful. I think I'm officially still under NDA, so I'm not going to go into details about that kind of stuff, what they can do. But it looks really great from a sim developer point of view. There's a lot more you can do. So I'm very enthusiastic to not only do this little demo, but to create a full implementation that takes advantage of all the things that Active Pedals can do.
And they can do a lot.
They can do a lot, yeah.
There's a lot of modularity in both of those systems.
Absolutely.
Working together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential there.
And there's a lot of untapped potential in the active pedals.
For sure.
Because for now, the most that they do, I'm exaggerating for the sake of the argument, but the most that they do is they vibrate along. But they can do so much more. And one thing that I've noticed is being able to use the different profiles depending on which car you're driving is day and night. Absolutely day and night.
Yeah, so we'll see a lot more from that in the upcoming months and years.